This is a small clip from one of my main videos. If you like it, then please check out the original video. Okay, bye, love you. Starting off the second pack, we've got Fibbage 2, the first ever sequel game in the Jackbox series. Starting here, the first game in every party pack is a sequel to a previous one, which means that technically every new pack contains 4 original games and 1 recycled one. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing though. It's fun to see the different iterations of certain games as the series goes on, and hey, of all the shitty games from pack 1 they could have brought back for pack 2, Fibbage XL was easily the most deserving. It was my favorite game in the pack and the one I had the least complaints about. Now as for Fibbage 2, well, it's basically Fibbage XL, but again, just like the original, the game gives you a fill-in-the-blank trivia question about some obscure fact or event, and it's your job to come up with a fake answer to that question that everyone else will think is correct. Once everyone submits their answers, they're all displayed on the screen, with the actual correct answer heading among them. Players are awarded points for finding the real answers, but are also rewarded for fooling others with their made-up answers. At the end of the game, the player with the most points is the winner. That's about all there is to it, and yeah, I mean, it is literally the exact same gameplay as Fibbage XL from pack 1, with like, no changes at all. But it is still a pretty fun and straightforward game that I always enjoy playing. It's as satisfying as ever to make up some ridiculous bullshit that ends up tricking everyone, and it's still just as fun to learn about these weird-ass true events as it was in the original too. It's a good time for sure, but it's like almost beat for beat the exact same experience as the game I already played in pack 1. Here's the thing about these Jackbox sequel games. I don't have a problem with them being a thing, in fact I think they're mostly good, but they never really strive to revamp the original games with major changes or improvements like you might expect. I'd argue that instead, they serve as more of an excuse to revisit these old concepts, with some slight alterations, but ultimately leaving the gameplay unchanged. I mean, taking a look at the Fibbage series, there are currently 4 of these sprinkled throughout the party packs, and none of them are really that different from Fibbage XL in pack 1. You get pretty much the same experience playing any of these. As someone who buys every pack and intends to for as long as they keep coming out, yeah, it can sometimes be a bit lame to know that a handful of the games I'm paying for are just essentially clones of each other with different skins, but I can definitely see the good in this decision. For starters, despite what I just said, I still think it can be cool to see old classics come back with a new art style, and especially new gameplay changes, the ones that are more substantial anyway. More importantly though, not everyone is gonna buy every party pack, which means that if you're someone who only wants to buy 1 or 2 packs, the similarity between the different iterations of each game is entirely in your benefit. If you were looking to buy your first party pack, and you know that you absolutely want a pack that has a Fibbage game in it, because there are so many sequels, you're not restricted to buying the shitty first pack that contains Fibbage XL and WordSpud. You've got 4 different packs to choose from that all have a different variation of Fibbage. And because the sequels barely innovate on the gameplay at all, and are mostly only different in terms of visuals, you won't really be pressured to buy the pack that includes the most recent variant. It's not like it's the definitive version or anything, they're all pretty much the same, so you basically get the freedom to pick between 4 different packs based on which one's other 4 games appeal to you the most. If every pack contained 5 brand new games with no sequels to previous ones, yeah, we'd have much more variety, but the people who only care to own one specific party pack game would be forced to buy the sole pack that includes it, rather than having a few options. Likewise, if these sequels actually did drastically improve on the concept of the games they were following, you might feel like you have to buy the pack including the latest and most refined version, whether the other games in the pack appeal to you or not. So all in all, I get why these sequels are a thing, and why they don't change a lot about their originals. But the reason I even bother discussing this at all is because, man, of all the sequels in the Jackbox series, Fibbage 2 is easily the least different from its predecessor. I'm talking the gameplay, the visuals, everything. It is a damn near copy and paste job, honestly. Most Jackbox sequels will of course change the prompt lineup, but may also largely revamp the art style, and maybe add a couple of twists to the gameplay here and there to keep things fresh. Art style wise, Fibbage 2 looks like Fibbage XL's maternal twin. It looks like some dumbass 3rd grader snuck into the Fibbage XL studio and splattered some paint everywhere, and that's about it. Mr. Eyeballs also makes an appearance, but besides that, the visuals of these 2 games are very, very similar. The questions that appear in this game are different from the ones in the original, I had to assume, and some of these questions are randomly given a bunch of extra attention with unique theming, like this road trip question that does this whole song and dance about, oh yeah baby, it's a road trip question, and then it just functions the same exact way as any other question, so I don't really know why they did that. The only actual gameplay change present here is the new defibrillator feature. Once per game, each player gets the option to use the defibrillator to eliminate all but 2 answers from their selection. The real answer and 1 player-made answer, giving them a 50-50 shot at a correct guess. It's a pretty decent feature that'll help you if you're lagging behind, but I always sort of forget this thing exists. It's a neat option to have, but I don't know, I just find it more fun to weed out the correct answers myself. Fibbage 2 also includes the new audience feature, and while I'm sure it's a great thing to experience in your games, I really wouldn't know. But you see, in Fibbage 2, there's this thing you can do each round where you can leave a thumbs up on other players' answers that you found amusing, and whoever gets the most of these throughout the game gets a silly little trophy at the end. This happened to the original Fibbage 2, but in this one, up to 200 people in the audience can thumbs up their favorite answers throughout the game alongside the actual players. This has no effect on the final scores or the winner, but it's still a fun little thing for spectating players to contribute to the game with. Oh, and also, when you join the Fibbage 2 lobby, you get this option to choose which sound effect plays whenever you do something in the game. Fuck yeah. At the end of the day, Fibbage 2 is Fibbage XL again. It makes less changes than any other sequel in the Jackbox series does to their original games, but honestly, I don't mind that. Fibbage XL was my favorite game in the first pack, there wasn't really much I'd change about it, and hey, some Jackbox sequels actually end up freaking worse than their predecessors in my opinion, so it's at least good that Fibbage 2 is just as much fun as the first. I will say though, being one of the currently 4 Fibbages to pick from, Fibbage 2 is in my opinion the most forgettable one in the series. I mean, Fibbage XL is the first one, Fibbage 4 is currently the most recent one, and Fibbage 3 is generally considered the best one, leaving Fibbage 2 kinda awkwardly sitting in the middle with nothing really special about it besides the defibrillator, which I personally don't even care about. It's still Fibbage, it's still a good game, and despite the insignificance of the improvements, I do still prefer it over Fibbage XL. But as someone who owns every Jackbox pack, the odds of me deliberately choosing to open up pack 2 to play Fibbage 2 are like non-existent. It's a fine enough game, just pretty irrelevant to me at this point.